Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Geoff Burgess, and I'm a board member of Vermont Independent Media, which is a nonprofit entity dedicated to promote media, journalism, and informed citizenship here in Southern Vermont. Currently, Vermont Independent Media, or VIM, supports The Commons, a weekly newspaper for Windham County, as well as the Media Mentoring Project, this, that you're experiencing tonight. Although the Media Mentoring Project was active back in the aughts, 15 years ago, it's been dormant for a while. So we have revitalized it. And we're focusing on two areas. One is media literacy, or engaging the general public around media issues. And then the other area that we're trying to focus on is getting involved in the schools and helping our young people understand all these different kinds of things in this very complicated media world that we live in now. Before I go any further, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsors who are helping us for this series that we've been running this fall. This Brattleboro Community Television is one, and the other is Brattleboro Savings and Loan. Now, before we dive into tonight's program, I want to tell you about our next program, which will be happening on Wednesday, December 8th, and it's kind of related to this one. That one's called Finding Your Voice, Community-Based Media. And again, this is trying to empower us to participate in our current media world, not simply as media consumers, but also media producers. While tonight we're focusing on print and getting our voice out that way, we'll be focusing more in December. For that program, we're going to focus on television and radio. We're going to have representatives from Brattleboro Community Television and Brattleboro Community Radio coming and talk to us about what's it like to get involved in that way and getting your voice out there. Now, the first part of tonight's program, which is called Speaking Your Truth, Opinion Writing, will feature two editors from our local papers, Melanie Winters of the Brattleboro Reformer and Jeff Potter from The Commons. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey.
And we've talked before, and we have a general idea of the topics we're going to cover. And I'm going to toss them some questions and let them run with it. We're going to go about 15 or 20 minutes with the editors. We're going to hear from what is it from the side of the publisher, the person who's going to be kind of looking at your work. What are they looking for? What do they expect? And then after we talk to the editors, Melanie and Jeff here, then we'll switch over to talk to Mac Gander for another 15 or 20 minutes. And with Mac, Mac is a reporter. He's also a journalism professor. He writes opinion pieces. And so he's going to talk to us about what it's like to put together a piece to put out into print. And in fact, he may even give us a short exercise at the end where we get to practice some of the things he tells us. Let's see, what else? Let me check my notes, see if there's anything else. Well, I think you're here to hear from the presenters, not so from me. We will hopefully have some time at the end for a little bit more open discussion. I'm afraid, though, it's going to be a little hard through this format to have too much give and take while the presenters are going on. However, we do welcome you to add comments and questions in the chat as it goes along. And I'll be watching the chat, and in different ways, maybe try to roll in some of the points that you want to have us cover. All righty. So, starting with our editors, maybe I'll go with you, Melanie, because you're at the top of my screen. The Zoom randomness of things. So, really, what's the process where? Just describe the process of how you. What do you do for publishing letters to the editor and op-eds?
Okay, well, there's two, obviously you just mentioned there's letters to the editor and there's op-eds. There's different criteria for both. Letters to the editor are usually shorter. They tend to be more from the general public and just expressing a quick point of view about maybe something they saw in the paper or an issue that's important to them. An op-ed piece, there's several criteria for that. It is usually longer, whereas an opinion piece usually runs about 300 or 400 words. An op-ed, maybe as much as 1,000 or more. And it's usually from, experts in that subject area, local or state officials who have some authority on the issue, or just somebody who's a regular contributor, or just, is able to really get in depth on the issue. It may be longer than a regular letter, but it's packed full of great stuff. So, we allow for some leniency. We have some rules. They're not hard and fast rules. We can offer some leniency depending on the situation, make some exceptions. But there are, we make exceptions, but that doesn't mean the exceptions become the rule, kind of thing. So, we have.
So what are the rules that you generally follow? Even though you'll be flexible about it.
Okay. Well, length is one thing. If somebody submits a 2,000 word essay, I got to kick it back to them. That takes almost a half page. A half a page in the paper. We just don't have the space for that. So sure. I'll kick it back to them for that. Sometimes, people write, this is a lot more recently, something more controversial, that they'll throw out things in there that, they say are facts, but they're questionable, and we have to watch out for spreading more misinformation and so forth. There are times when I will do a quick fact check on some of the things that they're saying in the letter or in the opinion piece. And if it doesn't pass muster, I got to kick it back to them.
Sure. Do you solicit or do people just send you things, or do you actively also go out and find people to provide you information?
Usually people in this town are very vocal. We usually do not have trouble getting opinion pieces. There will sometimes be a lull if nothing really controversial or exceptional is happening. But, there's usually something controversial or exceptional happening in this area. So there's a lot to talk about. If anything, sometimes we have trouble getting it all in a timely manner, which is
sure.
why we need to adhere to the space limit, the length and all that.
Sure. Let me pull Geoff into this. Geoff, I think there's a lot, probably a lot in common.
Totally. Yeah.
Reformer and what you think about. But, is there anything that might be a little different in how you look at opinion writing?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I think generally what Melanie said pretty much applies to us. We've got a little bit more flexibility in that as a weekly and as I've come up with a format too that it's really, really flexible in terms of length. I can take, sometimes if I get a really, really good 2,000 word piece that Melanie can't take, I will sometimes devote an entire voices section to one long thing. And I think it took a while for people to get used to the format, which entirely comes out of the fact that I hate counting words. I never have, and at this point I never will. So I've got a format that can accommodate pretty much anything that I like. We talked about letters versus op-eds. For me,
what's the difference in your view?
Yeah, for me, it's like Melanie said. It's a matter of length and kind of internal logic too. Most letters will be commenting on something that's appeared in the paper and kind of presume that you've already read it and that you're looking for the take. They're very short, quick in, quick out. Sometimes we'll get something right on the edge, and if it's good enough to be a self-contained opinion piece in its own right. Sometimes I'll just run that as a short op-ed with, under a heading, response, and that gives it a little more thunder. I basically I try to be creative and do what the piece kind of calls out to me, and I kind of see what feels right about it.
Do you publish most that comes to you, or half,
well,
or?
I sometimes, when I first started, I've been doing this for, getting on 14 years now. And when I first started, I had to find everything. And well, not everything, but, we had a couple of regular columnists and what have you, but there was a lot of untapped potential. And so I will Google the heck out of things periodically and find great material that people, that might already be out there. We do, tomorrow's paper will have a book excerpt that I stumbled on. Book excerpts, blogs aren't quite the thing they were 10 years ago, but I found a lot of good writers who had some really compelling material
Sure.
Out there on blogs.
Sure.
In fact, a few years ago, one of them turned, I turned his blog into a lengthy voices piece, and he then turned around and sold it as a book.
Wow. Interesting.
So,
well, you make me think. And I want to bring Melanie, but all of us, the three of us here. Anyone can spout off in social media, right? And so why would I even turn to the paper? Why would I want to put? What's the point? Because in a way, I have a gatekeeper. Then I have someone I have to pass muster by.
I've got some answers.
Go ahead, Melanie. You go first. Geoff.
Well, we do serve as gatekeepers. It offers a more civil discourse, I think. It forces people to really think what they want to say and how they're going to say it. And I just think that's better for the community than all this nastiness on social media. There's just more respect, because you have to take the time to think it through rather than just shooting from the hip, from the keyboard after someone else is obnoxious.
Yeah. In fact, Geoff mentioned a lot of the comments relate to things that are already in the paper. So it seems like there's some sort of dialogue that potentially occurs by bringing in your community. Go ahead, Geoff.
Well, I just a quick response to that is, you want this to be a back and forth. You want it to be a forum. You want it to have all the best aspects of social media, but slowed down. In fact, in my notes, you threw out some of these questions in an outline, and I've got my notes here, and in the margins, I got time to think. It's just, I think throttling that back is not a bad thing the combination of throttling it back, getting a little bit of perspective, and then gatekeeping. I can't claim to fact check everything perfectly, but I try as best I can to do everything that can be checked easily. I try to. For the same reason that Melanie just cited, is you just don't want to be amplifying the stuff that's out there, out of control online. That's that I think recent revelations with Facebook especially make you stop and think that this stuff is out of control and potentially really, really dangerous to our lives, to our livelihoods, to our entire structure of our country.
Sure. So by turning to our print media, we can actually somehow bring some of that back, bring some of the kind of sanity and kind of conversation that's necessary between us to be able to move forward.
Yeah, I think that newspapers and their online components can really coax people and into that sort of rhythm and make them better and more responsible citizens. I mean, that's really the possibility and the potential. And that's why I just get the voices section is my favorite section of the whole paper. And that's why it creates community.
Yeah. But so let me just say, social media has really blown up what people think is true. I mean, they think that we all carry our own biases, and those become reinforced. And so now we have these, I hear it's described as a post-truth period. So it must be hard to try to bring, when people are giving you their opinions through their letters and their op-eds, you want to be careful with that.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, Melanie, you and I talked earlier about issues about slander and libel. So I can believe this is completely true. What I'm writing you is the truth, but I could be crossing a line.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of examples. We have a letter that I red flagged recently. I won't give any of the details, but it's making accusations of voter fraud in a specific town. We can't just run that. I got a reporter on that looking into it.
Yeah.
Maybe
But what if it's true? What if it's actually true?
Well, we have to verify that it's true first before we start getting the word out there. Because once a lie is out there, once a mistruth is out there, it's a whole lot harder to bring it back in.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So there's the gatekeeper reason is we know things are verified.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's evidence to support it.
People love to talk about, the biased media and, our own biases seep in. Perhaps that's true. We are all human, but the vast majority of us have been doing this for a long time. We're trained to take that approach of trying to keep our own biases at bay. At least we're trying.
Yeah.
A lot of people out there don't even try.
Yes. What, Geoff? Did you want to say something?
No, I was just laughing at the recognition. This is a small town, and it's but one of the perspectives that we have in the voices section is that we've got a lot of writers who, even if they turned in what they consider to be a completely objective, middle of the road, unbiased piece of reportage, just by their reputation alone, people aren't going to trust that it's objective. And
sure.
One of the things that I try to have an expansive view of what exactly an opinion is. And
sure.
To me, it comes down to, is it advocating something? Is it coming from a perspective that's not even pretending to be, in search of that truth that Melanie's saying? In which case, I've got a section head for a dispatch. I mean, we do. It's possible to do real honest to goodness reporting with writers who are coming from a perspective of not being objective, and that's okay. It's just that how it's labeled and how it's presented and how what we claim for it. And I think that that gives a lot of flexibility for a town that really values that and doesn't and for readers that want to know exactly what the provenance of their opinion section is.
Yeah. Well, you both have mentioned this about reporting, and Mac will talk some about kind of the line between reporting and opinion writing. What is the line?
Well, basically for me, reporting is writing about other people's opinions, and opinion writing is writing about your own opinion. I mean, basically that's what it comes down to.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't dispute that. I will, however, add to that you can't have good opinion writing without also there being good reporting buttressing it.
Yes, absolutely.
Got it. So we're coming close to our time together for you folks. What advice do you have for people who would like to submit to your paper a letter to the editor or an op-ed? What counsel would you give them?
I would suggest reading other examples of good letter writing and opinion writing. That's how I learned how to write editorials.
Yeah,
was reading editorials from the New York Times or the Washington Journal. New York. Journal. There we go. That kind of thing is reading other good opinion writing.
Sure. So that matters. The quality of the writing it could be important.
Yeah, I think so. There are sometimes some pieces that I've just completely dismissed because it's rambling nonsense. I couldn't make
Sure.
sense of it.
It's not, it won't be clear to your audience what they're reading
Right,
because the
right.
way it's been written.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
The last time I edited something that was rambly nonsense into something that made sense, the writer, accused me of being the thought police, and I don't think he'll ever talk to me again.
Yeah, that's tricky, I imagine. Yeah.
But
well, it's a small community, as you mentioned, Geoff, and people have a lot to say, and I guess it's healthy that we have that kind of give and take.
Well, and also I've tried to I've got some technology that I've instituted recently that will let me very easily share the edited version of what we do with people's writing back with them before it goes to press. So at least they have the opportunity to see it. And I'd say,
are you talking about letters to the editor or
I'm talking about anything that's submitted to the editorial page, or for our own reporters for that matter? Anything that's bylined will automatically kick back to the person's email.
Got it.
So that saves an awful lot of time and adds a degree of transparency I've wanted for a really long time with that, because when it comes right down to it, it's not our names on these pieces. It's the contributors, and and I assume Melanie too. We want people to feel like their voice is honored and that they're happy with what we do with it, and that the editing that we do is in the service of the reader and only makes writing stronger and more effective.
Can I offer a suggestion? If you submit an opinion, please offer a suggested headline. Because sometimes you would be surprised how many people get angry at the headline that we chose for their opinion.
I'm not surprised.
No, you're not surprised. No. So I mean, you take that extra step and offer us a suggested headline.
Yeah. Well, my corollary to that is if we don't take the suggestion, don't get into a knife fight with us, because we do also have reasons for how we have a number of different things that, and that kind of that goes to editorial decisions in general. So what we look for in working with people's words, and we think of things that most people would not possibly imagine, ranging from the number of words in a headline to certain phrases that really should be there to give for search engine optimization, and so people can find your writing when it goes online. I want to be careful of how I say this, because I don't want to denigrate anybody, because I love this person. He's one of my favorite people in Windham County. But he will argue, he will suggest headlines that are so vague and be very insistent that it gets people curious to read and figure out what it's about. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you have someone invested enough to want to push their views on you like that.
Hallelujah. But also, don't take your ball and go home either. I mean, we want to be reasonable about all of this.
Right. Where's a clear example of something you wouldn't publish?
Ooh.
Seems like you really kind of open to whatever, and you try to make it work, but not all.
Yeah. I'm gonna think about that one, Melanie.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Kind of tough on that one.
Well, okay. you gave a good example with the people anything accusing somebody of something.
Yeah, sure.
How about certain key words that should not be used? I had to correct one letter. The person used the word Oriental when referring to people.
Oh, yeah.
Certain things like that we have to think
and so you still publish it, but with the correction and the person.
I emailed them back saying you might want to rethink this word, and they were actually very grateful. And I changed it to Asian.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Great example.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's the sort of thing I probably wouldn't have asked them, but would obviously come back to them in the proof.
But I think
Um,
it raises more awareness in them too.
yeah, that's a good
Point it
point.
out to them as to just fixing it in a
Yeah,
letter.
yeah, that's
She
a
was
good
very
point.
grateful. She was very
Great,
grateful.
great,
Yeah, and
great.
and a lot of these things are changing with breakneck speed.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole the thing that comes to mind is gender identity and
Mhm.
the
Sure.
terminology and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
whole people, yeah, and that just a lot of it has changed several times. Some of it's changed several times since I've become
yeah,
aware of it, sitting in the
yeah.
position of
It seems to be that would be something very important for you as an editor to be on top of,
oh,
like how
absolutely,
the language moves forward and
absolutely.
changes.
Because if we write something offensive, then that or some organization that represents that group will be contacting us. You can be sure of that.
Yeah. Well, you're
Oh, yeah,
great. You're accountable. You're the public.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and
Which is why we are the gatekeepers, because we have so many things that we have to think about, so many people that we have to answer to and explain
Sure.
yeah.
ourselves to.
And however much we still get it wrong, you wouldn't, if we didn't do any of that,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to make sure that people watching this don't think that we're complaining when people are upset at something that we let get through
Sure.
or whatever. I love engaging with our readers about language and usage, and especially if we, the last thing we want to do is hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the bottom line. And I could think of there's the I was
You
going
losing your thought?
to give an example, but I'd rather
Well,
not.
I think
but I
now's a
think-
time. It's a good time to switch to Mac. Just watching the time,
Yeah.
I want to make sure
Oh,
he
good.
gets his. We get to hear his side. Thanks so much. You two stick around. We can, maybe there'll be some things you'll be able to add to what
You bet.
Mac talks about.
Can we edit Mac's piece?
He's in
You
charge of
always do.
himself.
You
now.
always do, Geoff. It's inescapable. And Melanie, you've edited me too. So,
Hey, Mac. So
Hey,
you've done both reporting and opinion writing. Do you approach these the same or differently?
in one way, the same, and another way, completely differently. The way that's the same for me is that they're both about trying to find some version of the truth, and so there needs to be some research and sometimes reporting involved with with an opinion piece. Like, it should be solid. The difference for me is the relationship that I have as the writer. As a reporter, I don't have an opinion. I mean, I have feelings, but I don't have an opinion. It's a story. It's the opioid crisis. It's crime in Brattleboro. It's homelessness. And I may have my own opinions, but that's not my job as a reporter. It's to get other people to tell me the story, so that I can then put it together, and always working with an editor, and Geoff is a great editor for me. With an opinion piece, I start with what I'm thinking, and then go after it. One of my favorite opinion pieces was about Trump's ties to the Russian, oligarchy, and it was kind of like a timely piece, and no one had really put it together the way I thought it should be yet. And so I was just drawing on research and so on. But I started with the idea that I really believe that Trump was in cahoots, with the Russians in some fashion, and I was trying to learn about that. So it's really kind of where you start from like when I start right now I'm working on a big piece on race with some students, and I don't have any kind of sense of what the through line is. We're just gathering information, building it from the ground up,
Okay. Yeah. One thing you've talked to me about, and it's interesting. I think of reporting as that having to have evidence, but you say when you've told me about opinion writing, it's helpful to have not just evidence, but compelling evidence for an opinion. Is that correct?
Well, I would say that everyone has an opinion. There's that old joke, right? I mean, they're like, a bodily orifice. Everybody's got one, and for me to feel that my opinion is worth sharing requires that I feel that it's really grounded, whether it's in reporting or in research, or in personal experience, because that's the other thing. Sometimes opinion comes right out of what you're experiencing in your own life at the time, and just telling your story.
Yeah, so that's a truth. That's speaking your truth,
Yeah,
based on
exactly.
what you've observed. Yeah, yeah. You've told me that sometimes what helps is that you're not. You mentioned this with the Trump and Russian thing. Is there something unique that you have to say?
Well, I think
It's not
that's
something that everyone else is saying.
Right. I mean, it's in Vermont. Everyone knows climate change is bad. Right. I mean, that's a universal, widely accepted. So what's your opinion? How can you add something to that discourse? What's new about that? I would never write a piece on climate change because I don't study it. I love to read other people's pieces, but it's not an area that I cover, so I don't have, I can talk about like what the weather's like and how weird it is, have somebody who's lived in Vermont for 60 years, but and maybe that's a piece for Geoff, because Geoff will publish in Voices, even that, but there needs to be some grounding somewhere, and repeating other people's opinions is, I think that's one of the really, I read like 6 newspapers a day, and a lot of the time you're reading what somebody else wrote, just recycled, as opposed to something new and fresh.
Sure. So let's get in the nuts and bolts of this. What's your process?
Say it again, Geoff, please. Sorry.
So let's get into the nuts and bolts of this. What's your process? How do you approach writing an opinion piece?
Well, I'll slip into my slideshow, because I have a little slideshow that I was going to show, but in
great.
a second.
Okay.
But what I would say is that anything starts with a sense that there's a story that needs to be told that hasn't been told yet. Right now I'm working on a piece that may never get done, but one of the things that fascinates me is how exhausted we all are by COVID-19. And the ways in which that's manifested in more, I've already done the drug overdose part of that, and, suicides and car accidents and, homicides and so on. But there's kind of an exhaustion that I perceive in people. And I've been reading about that. The Times had a piece about languishing, as being, it's not depression, it's called languishing, was, this op-ed piece in the New York Times. So that interested me. And it's sort of like, what are we going through right now as a culture? So that's in my mind. And so I start thinking about it, and I read and I gather, and at some point I may feel like I've got enough to sort of start writing, and so it really starts with just a sense that there's a story that hasn't been told yet.
Great.
There we go. Who cares what you think? This is, I think with opinion writing, that, that is really the question. Who cares what you think? And to answer your question, the main thing is, like, a good reporter keeps their feelings and their opinions private and kind of follows the story the way it leads. One thing I will say about reporting is that when you do hard stories, you really have to control your emotions. That opioid story that I published on, with Geoff's help in mid-September, was a real workout. And I didn't have an opinion at all in it. With op-eds, I think you're making your opinion public, and you put your bias right up in front. You say it, I believe this is where I stand. And you have to go after truth, fairness, and balance in what you're writing about. Shanta, my wife Shanta, who's my partner in crime when it comes to investigative reporting, and I did a piece about don't defund the police in Brattleboro, right? And we just set it up front, and we got a lot of hits from that, from people that we like and who are friends, and part of our community, because we're inside the community of color and the community of people that want to defund the police. But, I'd had, a bike stolen from my garage, and we'd been burglarized twice, and, and so we had that opinion, and we just stood behind it. It was just what it was. And in both cases, it's got to be grounded. You've got to have some kind of research, even if it's just your own personal emotional story for that kind of piece. But with something like that, we were really talking about the difference between Brattleboro and Minneapolis, where we have a friend, or Seattle or LA or whatever. So I think, grounding in facts is really important. Next slide.
Great.
So this is reporting. All right. This is sheer reporting. She said, "I know I can't use again because I will die," Carol said. Carol's a pseudonym. This is the ending of one of the stories in my opioid piece. And this is reporting, pure reporting. After her daughter was removed from Phoenix House because of disruptive behavior and placed in a Burlington motel, it was about 3 weeks before she overdosed and died. "I had to go up to Burlington to get her stuff in," said Carol. "I think she had cleaned everything out. In her journal, all the pages were ripped out. It was as if she left no trail. Everything was clean. It was just a long time," Carol said. "And the hope thing was big for me because I had hope. After someone dies, there is no hope." So there's nothing of me in that story except just reporting what she said to me. Next slide. So this is all me. This is after George Floyd died. This is like a year and a half ago. This is the lead on a piece that won a third prize in the NPA competition for opinion. As protests raged across American cities against the heartless and sadistic murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, I think how impossible it is for anyone with white skin to know what it's like to have brown skin in the United States. There's no way to keep up with the news right now. All I can do is worry about friends in some of the cities that are on fire. The United States was on tenuous ground long before the virus hit us, and now it's cracked open. So for me, that would be an example of how to do a lead in an opinion piece. That's pure emotion. I'm married to a Black woman. I have a Black family. And my closest friend lives 6 blocks. One of my closest friends lives 6 blocks from where George Floyd was killed. And I was just like I was on fire writing this. And, later on, I reported, I had stuff from my friend in Minneapolis and so on, but it's pure emotion. That's all me. You either trust me or you don't. You trust my voice or not. Next slide. All right. So this is a middle ground. I didn't write this. This is somebody else's language, but I kind of helped it usher it through. And this is voice. This is what I think about when I think about giving voice. And this is something I would help anybody with, frankly. It's the ending of a piece that someone else, essentially dictated to me. Part of the opioid story also. I'm sorry if this sounds disjointed. I'm not used to discussing these things with folks I don't know. And it's all still very raw. I mean, my daughter's urn is here on the table as I write this, awaiting burial. And all I keep thinking is, this can't be real. She'd rented an Airbnb for her birthday for the following weekend. This isn't happening. I hope this is a little of what you were looking for. I hope you write your story. I hope people read it. If it saves one person, one family from this horror, you're a hero in my book. And I'm not the hero in this. I just transcribe this shit and we put it in the comments. I mean, there's no hero. She's the hero. Next slide. So I'll pause for a second. The relationship between reporting and opinion is closer than I think we think. And I sometimes think about the relationship, because I'm a poet, between poetry and journalism, because I'm a journalist. And I've been both of those things for 45 years. It's all about trying to get at the truth in some fashion. So these are some tips, and I'll put up front, I do plan to provide some free workshops to folks that want to work on stories as a conduit. One thing is you have to be able to express what you're going to write about in a sentence. I once had someone say, can you put that into the 6-word pitch? Boy meets girl, girl kills boy. You need to be able to say what you want to write about. I'm going to write about how affordable housing in Brattleboro is not working for anybody right now. Like, that's a story that one of my sources is working on. And be clear about what your personal interest is in it. make sure you understand that in your mind. Like, where's the emotion behind the story? Um, um, and then know what you need to know to be informed. That's research, that's reporting, that's also importantly knowing how to include the other view. If you're going to say that Wyndham, Housing Trust is like not doing its job, you better talk to somebody at Wyndham Housing Trust. You got to always do that. And then one thing I really emphasize with my own students is that articles are stories, and they need to have, because we learn through narrative as human beings. That's everything that we believe comes through narrative, whether it's the Bible or the Quran or, the Bhagavad Gita, So what kind of narrative is embedded? Because narrative brings the story alive. And then think about, how do you make it so it's reader friendly and true to your story? How do you construct something that's pretty easy to read and also true to what you're trying to say? Next slide. So, Melanie mentioned word count earlier. One of my favorite experiences as a journalist was writing a piece that was so timely that I wanted to put it in the Reformer instead of the Commons, because it just was a timing thing. I felt like it had to come out like that Thursday or Friday, and we weren't going to publish at the Commons until the following Wednesday. And so I kicked in this 1,500 word story, and Melanie kicked it, or someone at the Reformer, I think it was you, Melanie, kicked it back to me saying, yeah, this is great, but I need 700 words. And so I had to cut it way down. Another, funny story is I wrote a piece for the New York Times, not a piece, a letter to the editor. They have a 150 word limit on letters to the editor. And I got published. It was about ADHD and some, like a response to something that they had printed. So thinking about word count really matters, right? With the Commons and the way Geoff runs Voices, it's really flexible. And that's so cool for me. Because I can write long. But a lot of the time, 700 words is enough, and sometimes 250 words is plenty. So thinking about what do you have to say and what do you not have to say. And then logistically, you always have to think about audience. Like, what's your purpose? What's your audience? Will anyone care? We all have opinions. What makes yours important? And then the hard thing, and sometimes some people need help with this, is delivering material that's in good shape in terms of sentences and structure. One of the things, because I teach people with learning disabilities, that I'm aware of is that not everybody writes proper prose, right? It doesn't happen, right? So how do you think about how you can get help making it sound good enough to be in the paper? And editors will help with that too. They really will if you've got a good story. Yeah, those are just some things to think about. And next slide. So this is structure. If you're going to write anything, you have to think about what your first paragraph is, or your first couple paragraphs. What's the hook? It's in journalistic language, it's called the lead, which is spelled L-E-D-E, to get it differentiated from lead, which is what we used to use for type back in the day, long time ago. You need a good hook. You have to also, up top, say what you're talking about. Don't make your reader wait to find out what your point is. At Newsweek, we used to call that the billboard. A lot of, in daily journalism, it's sometimes called the nut graph. The paragraph that's the nut of the story, the core of it. I really recommend that people learn to write in short paragraphs. I think a paragraph that's more than 3 sentences long better justify itself, especially in this current visual age, because readability is really essential. And so writing quick and tight like that. The logic of body paragraphs really depends on your content, but you want to have a logic to it. You want to have a flow, and you want to end strong. The two pieces of print that I shared earlier, those were both kickers. Those were both conclusions. I wanted to end. One of my teachers once said, "End with your lights on," and making your reader think. So next slide. I'm going to check time here because next slide. I have a quick exercise, and I'm going to give you all a minute to write a sentence in which you describe the topic of a piece you want to write, and then write a sentence or two for your lead, just to start it off. And I'm just going to give you 1 minute. I'm timing this here. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to finish up if you're writing, and if you're not writing, maybe you're thinking. And then I'll say a few more things. And then if we have time, I'd love to hear people share. We'll go back into gallery, get the PowerPoint off. Just a couple last points. One thing to really think about is that there are a lot of different outlets and different systems. They all have different systems and requirements. The Reformer and the Commons are two different options locally, but there are others locally as well. You know, my wife Shanta publishes all over the place online in places like Ms. and Dame and, you know, et cetera. There are lots of, you know, national or semi-national places. So if you're really interested in getting your story out, don't, you know, think about that. And then a second thing I want to say, and this really matters to me a lot because I teach journalism, it's not something you can learn in school. You know, you can learn some things about it, but you learn by doing it. You really do. It helps to have somebody, you know, who helps. I mean, I learned from teachers who are journalists, and now I try to teach students, but it's not an academic subject. And then my last point is, like, if you've got a good story, my email address is mac@commonsnews.org, and just hit me up, and I'm glad to help with it. So dial out of my slides now, and that's me. I wonder if can we go to like gallery view, and if anybody wants
let's just bring everybody in and let's have a little bit of talk, a little bit of sharing.
So I'd be wondering if anybody has, like, who has a story topic that they want to work on in this group? Come on, unmute yourselves, show up.
Michelle, do you have something, a question for our folks, or do you want to talk a little bit about your efforts to do some writing tonight? You're muted.
I could, but I'm happy to let other people have a chance. Just because my video worked first doesn't mean that I need to be the hog. But I'm happy to go as a guinea pig if you need one.
I'll go for it, Michelle. Come on.
Okay, so you may or may not know, but I'm a state representative, and I actually have a rough draft of an op-ed that I want to send in to Governor Scott about COVID. And the fact that last week we had 478 people get COVID in a single day, the highest rates ever. And all Governor Scott is doing is saying, everybody get vaccinated and it'll all be okay. And so, so I don't know, I did your little exercise. Do you want me to read my top 2 sentences?
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Okay, so I don't know if these are good or not. Yeah, anyway, I'll just go for it. Okay, 2 weeks ago, I stood in the State House with doctors, nurses, and other legislators at a press conference asking Governor Scott to enact better COVID policies. The state of emergency was lifted long ago, but we are still facing a public health emergency.
Well, both Geoff Potter and Melanie Winters are better qualified to me to comment on that, but that sounds really good to me as the lead.
Yeah, yeah, it's right to the point. It's concise. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, yeah, ditto.
All right. Well, I might be pushing in
Sure.
something in the mail later today.
Who else is out there willing to be that brave? And if people's videos are not locked or whatever. No one else here actually has opinions, I guess.
You're shy.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll
That's
pick
actually the
on,
interesting thing about opinions is you really got to put yourself out there.
It's so true. It's so true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I see a
Anyone-
hand up. Stephen?
Yes, thank you. I recently had a letter to the editor in the Reformer where I was responding to someone who said that that to even discuss ivermectin in a serious way is wacko and crazy. And I found on the NIH website there was a journal article, peer-reviewed, which said something quite different, and that the NIH itself is saying that there's evidence on both sides, that it is something that needs to be talked about. Now, if I write about that, I kind of feel nervous that immediately I'm the magnet for anybody who wants to call me like I'm wacko now, because I'm even talking about it in a serious way. And I feel like no matter how careful I am to ground my statements, to have citations and good sources, I'm going to get myself labeled, and my work won't be taken seriously. I wonder if you have any comments about that.
I think basically just what I said. When every time you express an opinion, you're putting yourself out there. You're taking a risk. We kind of do it all the time.
I think that particular issue that I'm talking about is so polarized
Mhm.
that anybody who tries to discuss it in a dispassionate manner is likely to be suspected of that they are really an advocate of one side or the other, because after all, there is only two, they've got to be for or against, and they're trying to fool you by pretending to be objective.
Hey, Steve, I will say that if you approach that head on, I think that from my perspective, I don't see measured viewpoints coming in on this. I think any letter that I've gotten that's mentioned, any alternative narratives to the evolving COVID medical protocols usually come with the and I'm not exaggerating by much, basically starting out with their lead is you are all ignorant and and this is the truth and everybody's trying to it basically I would personally really love to see something that is meticulously reported and also takes a nuanced view at it. I would have no problem with that. And I think that how you do it is very much going to affect how people are going to perceive it, and just acknowledging that lamenting that this is it's hard to have the conversation can in fact diffuse the very difficulty of the conversation that you're not looking forward to. I had this brings to mind a piece that somebody submitted. I want to say maybe 6 or 7 years ago on vaccine hesitancy, and that was a tough one for me because just from my personal background is the first newspaper I edited, I had a reporter who was pregnant and lost her baby because she caught whooping cough from somebody who was unvaccinated. That is just, that's, I still feel, and I still carry a tremendous amount of guilt that she was doing it, covering a story for a newspaper that was, surely should not have happened. So, it's hard not to be a little bit, it's hard for me not to bring some of that bias, but this person submitted something that did a fantastic job at wrestling with some of these issues and wanting the best for her child and wanting to and really kind of really exploding the fact that she wasn't a conspiracy nut. And I think that I found that all the more poignant and effective. And I can't remember how much discussion evolved out of it, but it certainly did not bring a raining, we didn't have molten lava coming down onto the pages of the paper. I don't know if that's helpful. But
well, you're talking about hard conversations that we have to have among ourselves, Geoff. And I think one point you made right at the top is you can't can't start by insulting others. You're not going to get any conversation at that point. You've turned them off. So maybe that's, seems like an obvious tip we should all understand, but sometimes we get carried away.
And just to pick up on that, Geoff, I would say that one of the hardest things that I think human beings have to learn how to do is to listen to each other, and kind of really hear each other. And, and I think that one of the jobs of good op-ed writing is to listen to the other side, and accommodate it in some fashion, rather than this kind of slash and burn warfare we're in right now that you were talking about earlier, Melanie. I mean, it's if you have, I have an opinion about ivermectin based on everything I've read in the press, but I haven't read everything in the press. And if there's other data, I'd be open to, like what I'm missing, what am I missing? I'm open, so I think that's, I think it's just important to have both sides in every story.
Yeah. And also, I want to come back and point out that this is exactly the type of conversation that you can't have online. Because there's no room for it. All the oxygen in the room is taken up by screaming and trolling and hair on fire. This is the perfect. Geoff with a G asked, what's the point of why not just let this all come out online? This is one perfect illustration of where there is space in this world for a newspaper editorial pages. Sure.
Well, we're getting close, or we're near the end of our time that we've had allotted. I just want to circle back to something I said at the beginning about the media mentoring project. One thing we're really interested in is having young people be involved, other than people like me. And I want to give a shout out that there's a college class here with us today. Liz Powell, you're the instructor, correct?
That's correct. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. And is this going in? Is this type of thing that's helpful for what you're trying to accomplish with your classes?
It is, and we're working on. We're a college writing class, a freshman college writing class, and we've been working on argument and persuasion. And we were reading opinion columns in class the other day, and then I saw your class. I don't even remember where I saw it, and I thought that it would be fun for the whole class to come, because it's also, the culture has also changed, and I would like to get young people involved. I mean, I had grouchy grandparents that raised me, so I knew all about opinion columns, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the work that you all do. Like, I got my start working at the White River Valley Herald in 1989, and I was a radio reporter in White River, and I want to pass this on to my students, and I'm so excited that you're doing this, and anything else that you do, I would love to know about. And almost all of them came, so I'm just delighted, and it was a great presentation, and thank you for the work you do. Freedom of speech and freedom of information is so important to me on a cellular level, and and this is God's work.
Yes.
Wow, I don't think we can top that.
Yeah.
Nice to be appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah. Liz, I've got one thing that I'm thinking is I've got a list of a few URLs of stuff that I picked up that are related to this that might be helpful and to everybody. I'm going to paste it into the chat. So if they've got some
some takeaways.
Some takeaways.
Nice. And Liz, if your class comes together at another day and you are processing what they heard tonight, if you have anything you want to share about how this is working for them and what insights they have, because we are out of time, but you please share that with me and I can share with our panelists.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
Absolutely. So everyone, I think we're going to say goodnight. Remember, we have another Media Mentoring Project presentation on December 8th, and you'll be seeing a lot more information about that. Thank you, Geoff. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Matt.
All right.
You guys are amazing. So we're going to say goodnight.
Good night.